Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Primer Encuentro Relief. We are honored and glad to present Dr. Catherine Hersh-Pasek from Temple University, Philadelphia, and Brookings Institution. Dr. Hersh-Pasek is a prominent figure in the psychology field. She carries on her research work on language, play, screen time, and early education. She is director of Temple University's Infant Language Laboratory. Some of her most important publications are Becoming Brilliant, How Babies Talk, and A Mandate for Playful Learning in Preschool. Thank you, Catherine, for giving your insights about linguistics.
It is my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Well, we have some questions we would like to share with you, such as which topics do you consider should be investigated in the area of language, which are the trending topics, what are the challenges, and of course, your own experience.
Well, I think there's so many wonderful topics in the area of language learning right now. I suspect most of the emphasis I'm putting on it right now is in the first 3 years of life. I think there's magic there to be discovered as we watch those very first interactions with children and their parents back and forth. And what we have learned in the last couple years that's tremendously exciting to me is that in those moments of the early social back and forth, even well before a young child has any language at all, they're learning about conversation. They're learning about timing. They're learning about meaning. And we call these contingent responses. And it turns out that the children who have more of these contingent, flowing back and forth conversations, they're the ones who are going to end up having better language skills, even a year and 2 years later. So you can watch these children when they're age 1, 1.5, 2, and then look at their language scores when they're 3, and you can predict by their interactions over here what the language outcomes are going to be over here. I think there's something very powerful in that, and in our own lab, we're starting to look at aspects of what are called neural synchrony, where you actually put a cap, a little neural cap that takes readings from the mother and takes readings from the baby. And what we're learning is that these actually can come together and create a synchronous experience between an adult and a child as they're looking at an object, hearing the name of something. And so for the future, we're wondering, might moments of neural synchrony also be the moments that are helping to build attention and build memory, build the cognitive system? Might they be what Lila Kleitman used to call the hotspots for language development? Well, we hope to find out. And I think looking around this neural synchrony and around these contingent interactions could be a very, very hot space for future research.
Great, and considering the future research and the challenges, what advice maybe you would give to someone who is just starting out on linguistic research?
The first thing is to understand what magic it is. That human beings are able to learn something as complicated as language, even before they tie their shoes, is kind of remarkable. It's a remarkable accomplishment. And let's try to just look a little more closely at what it means. On the one hand, babies, little babies, watch the flow of events in front of them as if they're watching a movie. And in order to learn a language, you have to be able to carve those events in ways that are going to be chunkable and mapped onto what are going to be the units of language. And what are the units of language that take the mapping? Well, there's the sounds of language we have to learn. There's the words of language we have to learn. There's the phrases, and then there's the sentences, and we string them all together seamlessly. And in Argentina and many other countries in Latin America, you do such a fabulous job of learning more than one language. How do people ever do that? How do you ever keep that straight? And yet the human brain, as Steven Pinker once said, learns to spin language in much the same way that spiders spin webs. How do they do it? How do I know that if I hold this bottle up in front of you and I go, bottle, that's a bottle. Can you see the bottle? Well, what do you think bottle means? Does it mean my hand holding the bottle? Does it mean the bottle, the water inside the bottle, the blue label that you see on the side of the bottle, or the cap? And somehow children figure out reference. So the first thing I would say to those of you who want to study language is recognize its complexity. You have been endowed with a system that no other species on Earth has. Its complexity is overwhelming. And to understand, as Noam Chomsky always said, the architecture of language is to understand the architecture of the human mind itself.
Yes, of course, we really agree to that point of view. And considering, for example, the contributions that linguists can make to society, what would you say about that issue?
Well, there are many contributions that linguists can make to society. I myself have studied a lot of linguistics and psycholinguistics, which is the psychology of language, and then also how to bridge what we learn in the laboratory with what you can do in society at large. So let's just take a couple of examples. First of all, language is the single best predictor of your trajectory through school. So that means if you have strong language skills when you're 2 and 3 years of age, then you're going to have stronger readiness for school when it's time to enter into formal schooling. You're going to be better equipped when you learn to read to map the words and the letters onto the sounds and words in your mental dictionary that are going to help you understand the reading, and hence are going to help you all the way through school and beyond. They're going to help you in healthcare so that you're going to understand more about your body because you'll understand it better. So you'll be able to be a scientist who understands the language of science. And importantly, equally importantly, we use language, verbal and nonverbal, to better communicate with each other and to form relationships, social relationships, which are the bedrock, as I argue in Becoming Brilliant, for everything that we ever learn after we're born. So why is language important? Because it is the base. Now, what can we do about it? There are a couple of things we can do about it, and one is to ensure that those children who come from under-resourced environments get a better chance at having those conversations, and that parents come to recognize that the very back and forth conversations that you have with your children, not at or to your children, they are building up strong language skills. And that you don't have to be a pro, you already are a pro by being vested with being human. So talk about what's of interest to you. Talk about the pie that your grandmother taught you to make, or the special food, or the special way in which you use tools, or something that's culturally important to you. also recognize that the more we have these conversations with our children, the more our children will be the benefactors of those conversations, because they will grow their mental dictionary and their depth of knowledge. So we have many programs in the United States, and many of them are also translated into Spanish, and I'm sure you have them in Argentina as well, where we are literally showing parents the power they have in their own voice and their own language, if they know that it's cool to communicate with young children, if they know that it's a benefit to the young child, if you only do that. And so we have many of these programs, back and forth programs, that can help parents see the power and gift of their own language. We have interventions from a number of different people. I have my own that's called the Duet. And the duet is because what we need to do with our children is like singing a duet, not like spouting something in a monologue, but a back and forth and a back and forth. And we show people how to do that. And I would be happy to share with you what we've come up with for for what we're calling our bilingual version, but is indeed our Spanish version of Duet, if any of you would like to work with young children. We also have new measures of how are our kids doing, which are screening tools that we've developed for 2-year-olds and 3 and 4 and 5-year-olds up to age 6. And again, these are in both English and they are in Spanish. And we are more than happy to share anything with you. But these measures that help us better understand came from our understanding of the studies of language and then went out to be applied to the society at large. So you have a lot to offer the society at large by studying linguistics.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I don't know if you'd like to add anything. I think you answered all the questions,
Okay.
but if you want to add any comment, well, we are happy to listen to you.
I would just add that I am so thrilled that you are starting departments of linguistics and that you're going to do both linguistics and applied linguistics, applied language, and bring that to your country. And I can't wait to see what you develop and then share with us, because together, I think we made the field so much richer. And no field is really rich unless it's international and it has global reach. And so you will add a different cultural perspective that I hope you can then share with us. And I will always, always be here to work with those of you who are starting out. And remember that you have partners in the United States who have been doing this science for a while, and you're never, ever alone.
Thank you so much.
You bet.